Imagine thinking you're building a life with your soulmate, only to discover he's been scripting a whole different love story behind your back. For 2 years, Mark wasn't just my partner, he was my best friend, my future. We talked about marriage, constantly, the venue, the songs, even the cake flavors, or so I thought. That's why what happened last Saturday shattered my world into a million jagged pieces. I wasn't supposed to be at that little park by the river, but a weird feeling, a nagging doubt I couldn't shake after months of late nights and secretive texts he brushed off as work stress, made me drive there. And what I saw froze the blood in my veins. There he was, Mark, my Mark, down on one knee, on a picnic blanket scattered with rose petals. Not for me, for her. Some woman I'd never even seen before, beaming like she'd won the lottery. The ring he'd shown me pictures of, the one we picked out together, glinted in her direction. My stomach dropped. All those whispered promises, the plans, the trust, it vaporized in an instant, replaced by a cold, hard fury. He wasn't just cheating, he was about to seal the lie with a diamond, using our dreams to start a fraud with someone else. People talk about seeing red, but for me, everything went crystal clear. All those hidden credit card statements I'd found. The unexplained hotel charges, the weird withdrawals labeled gifts suddenly. They weren't just confusing slips of paper anymore. They were evidence, the proof of every single lie, every stolen moment, every dollar spent betraying me. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. Not then. Sitting in my car watching my future implode before my eyes, I knew exactly what I needed to do. This wasn't just about confronting him. This was about exposing the truth, right there, in the spotlight he'd created for his perfect, fake proposal. I reached into the folder beside me, my hand steady for the first time in weeks. The papers inside weren't just receipts, they were his downfall, and I walked right towards them, ready to rewrite his romantic scene into a nightmare he'd never forget. What happened next. Well, let's just say his big moment didn't go according to his script. Why this works. Strong Hook starts with relatable emotional betrayal, soulmate, different love story, sets characters, tone, establishes Mark and relationship history quickly, creating empathy. Tone is raw, hurt, then shifts to determined fury. Builds suspense. Describes the discovery scene vividly, froze the blood. Stomach dropped, clearly states the betrayal's depth ring, future plans stolen, natural keywords, cheating, betraying, proof, evidence, receipts, confronting, exposing, proposal, mistress are woven in naturally, human-centric, focuses on the narrator's feelings, doubt, shock, fury, clarity and actions. Feels like a real person telling their story. Cliffhanger ends just as she approaches them, ready to rewrite his romantic scene, leaving viewers desperate to know how she ruined it and their reactions. YouTube. Safe focuses on emotional fallout and exposing truth with documents, avoids depicting violence, threats, harassment, or illegal acts. The revenge is the public. Exposure itself, simple and natural, uses conversational language. Weird feeling. Stomach dropped, glinted in her direction, slips of paper. Avoids overly complex sentences or AI stiffness. Not my steps across the grass felt strangely quiet, like the whole world was holding its breath. Mark still hadn't seen me, completely lost in his performance for this woman Sarah. I'd later learn her name was Chalut Happy, genuinely swept up in whatever fairy tale he'd spun for her. That almost made it worse. Did she even know I existed? The thought was another gut punch. Looking back, the signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. Mark became distant, sure, but he blamed work, stress, said he was planning something big for us. Classic cheater playbook, right? Then there were the little things. His phone suddenly always face down, weekend golf trips with the guys he couldn't really talk about, the way he flinched if I casually touched his phone to check the time. My gut started screaming long before my brain caught up. The money stuff was the real crack in the wall. I handle our finances, always have. That's how I first saw the weird charges, fancy dinners on nights he claimed to be working late, hotel stays in the next town over, labeled vaguely as supplies or team building, bouquet deliveries to an address that wasn't mine, not even close. Each receipt was like a tiny paper cut, small on its own, but together they bled doubt all over my trust. I started saving them, printing them out, shoving them into a plain folder I kept hidden in my desk. It felt crazy at first, paranoid, but every time I added another unexplained charge, a jewelry store purchase for a ring I never got, a spa day receipt, the crazy felt a little more necessary. That folder became my proof, my armor against the gaslighting and the "you're overreacting" dismissals. Now, holding that same folder, walking towards his picture-perfect betrayal, the paranoia felt like power. I could see Sarah spot me first. Confusion flickered across her face, then a polite smile, maybe thinking I was a friend coming to celebrate. Then Mark turned. His expression, pure, unadulterated terror. The color drained from his face like someone pulled a plug. He froze, the ring box hovering awkwardly in the air, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. He hadn't planned for this scene. This wasn't in his script. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. broken only by the distant traffic. I stopped a few feet away, the folder clutched tight. Sarah looked from Mark's panicked face to mine, her happy glow fading into wary confusion. Mark finally choked out a single, strangled word. Baby. That's when I lifted the folder, my voice surprisingly steady, cold. Who's the baby? Mark. Because it sure isn't me. Want to explain these? I tapped the thick stack of papers. His eyes locked onto them, wide with dawning horror. Sarah's gaze followed, her smile vanishing completely. The picnic blanket looked like a stage, and I was center, ready to drop the truth bomb. I took a breath, ready to speak, ready to shatter. His perfect lie right there on the grass. Here's the continuation. Diving deeper into the confrontation while keeping the tension high and introducing new layers, the word baby hung in the air, sharp and wrong. Sarah's eyes snapped from the folder to Mark's ghost-white face. The confusion vanished, replaced by a dawning, sickening realization. Mark, her voice was smaller now, shaky. Who is this? Mark just stared at me, frozen. The ring box trembled in his hand. I saw the exact moment his brain short-circuited, caught between two collapsing worlds. He opened his mouth, maybe to lie again, maybe to beg, but nothing came out, except a choked gasp. I didn't wait. I flipped open the folder, the sound loud in the heavy silence. My finger landed on the first damning receipt, the jewelry store, dated months ago, for the exact ring sparkling in Sarah's direction. Recognize this, Sarah. My voice was clear, cold, cutting through the summer air. He bought this with our joint savings, said it was an investment piece. I held it up so she could see the date, the price, the store logo. Her hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with horror as she looked back at the ring. Then there's these, I continued, pulling out a sheaf of hotel invoices, weekend getaways, romantic dinners, spa days. I rattled off dates, locations, amounts. Funny, Mark told me he was on business trips those weekends, said the credit card fraud was probably just a glitch when I asked about the charges. Each word felt like dropping a stone into still water, watching the ripples of shock spread across Sarah's face. Her happy tears were gone, replaced by a growing fury and disbelief. She looked at Mark like she was seeing him for the first time. Mark finally found his voice, a desperate, wheezing sound. Honey, please let me explain. It's not what it looks like. He took a step towards her, hand outstretched, but she flinched back violently. Don't you dare call me that. Sarah spat, her voice cracking. Not now. How long, Mark? How long? The question echoed, raw and painful. She wasn't just asking about the affair. She was asking about the foundation of their relationship. Was she the other woman? Or had he been playing us both from the start? The uncertainty was its own kind of torture. Mark's eyes darted between us, wild, cornered. He looked physically ill, sweat beading on his forehead. I can fix this, he stammered, a pathetic attempt at damage control. We can talk, privately. He tried to reach for the folder, but I snapped it shut, holding it tight against my chest. My proof my arm at Sarah wasn't having it. Fix it. You were just proposing to me while you were married. Her voice rose, trembling with rage and heartbreak. She pointed a shaking finger at me. To her, what is wrong with you? She looked back at me, tears finally spilling over. Did you know about me? Did you know he was doing this? Before I could answer, Mark made a strangled sound. The ring box slipped from his fingers, hitting the grass with a soft thud. The diamond winked mockingly in the sunlight. He swayed, clutching his chest, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Was it a panic attack, guilt, or just the terrifying collapse of every lie he'd carefully built? He sank to his knees, not in proposal this time, but in utter defeat, right there on the ruined picnic blanket. Sarah stared down at him, a storm of betrayal and confusion on her face, then turned her furious, tear-filled gaze back to me, demanding answers neither of us might fully have yet. The bomb had dropped, but the fallout was only just beginning to rain down. My revenge felt cold, sharp, and utterly necessary, but looking at Sarah's shattered expression, I knew the real cost of his lies was far from paid. This wasn't an ending. It was just the beginning of the mess he'd made. Sarah's question hung heavy between us, sharp as broken glass. Did you know about me? Her voice was raw, accusing, but underneath I heard the same terrifying uncertainty that had haunted me for months. Looking at her tear-streaked face, the carefully applied makeup now smudged, the happy glow utterly extinguished, a pang of something unexpected hit me. Not sympathy for him, never for him, but for her, for the ghost of the woman I used to be, the one who believed his lies. No, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I didn't know you, but I knew something was wrong. That's why I have these. I tapped the folder again, the solid proof a shield against the emotional chaos swirling around us. Mark was still on his knees, gasping, clutching his chest, his eyes darting wildly between us like a trapped animal. Was it real panic, or just another performance? After everything, I couldn't trust a single twitch of his face. Sarah ignored him completely now. Her focus was laser-sharp on the folder, on the tangible evidence of her shattered reality. Show me, she demanded, her voice trembling but fierce. Show me everything. She took a step closer, her gaze locked on the papers in my hands. The picnic blanket, once a symbol of his romantic gesture, was now just a messy stage for his downfall. The rose petals looking cheap and sad. Mark finally found a strangled voice. Stop, please. Sarah, baby. Listen to me. She's twisting things. He tried to push himself up, his movements clumsy and desperate. Those receipts, they're not what you think. Business expenses, gifts for clients. I can explain this, Sarah snapped, her finger stabbing towards the abandoned ring, boxed lying in the grass near his knee. Explain proposing to me while you're engaged to her. Explain the spa day receipt for last Tuesday when you told me you were stuck in meetings all day. Her voice cracked, but her anger held. She was starting to connect the dots herself. The dates, the lies he'd fed her lining up horribly with, the evidence in my folder. You told me you loved me, that you were free. Was any of it real? He flinched as if she'd struck him. It was real. With you, it was always real. The words tumbled out, desperate and revealing. He hadn't meant to say that. Not in front of me. His eyes flickered to mine, wide with fresh horror, realizing the bomb he'd just dropped. The implication hung thick in the air. What we had wasn't real. A cold fury, colder than before, settled over me. He hadn't just betrayed me, he'd minimized our entire relationship, our shared life, to Sarah's face. I flipped the folder open again, deliberately slow. Let's see what else was real. Mark, I said, my voice dangerously calm. I pulled out a specific receipt, the one for the expensive hotel suite downtown, dated for our anniversary weekend. The weekend he'd claimed his car broke down, 3 states away. Remember this, our 3rd anniversary. You sent me flowers and apologized profusely for being stranded. Turns out, you were stranded right here in town. With her, I held it out towards Sarah, room service for 2. Champagne romantic getaway package. Sarah snatched the paper from my hand, her eyes scanning it rapidly. Her face paled, then flushed with a fresh wave of furious betrayal. That weekend, you said you were visiting your sick aunt. She crumpled the receipt in her fist, her knuckles white. You lied about everything to both of us. Simultaneously, Mark looked utterly broken now, the panic giving way to a dazed, defeated slump. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The lies had finally run out. Sarah turned back to me, her eyes blazing. Give me the folder, she demanded, holding out her hand. I need to see it all. Every single lie. Before I could react, Mark lunged. Not at Sarah, not at me, but at the folder clutched in my hands. A surge of primal desperation propelled him off his knees, his hand grabbing wildly for the edge of the thick stack of papers, the proof of his double life. His financial betrayal, the evidence that could destroy him. His fingers scrabbled against the cardboard, his breath ragged with panic. No, you can't. Give it to me. I jerked back instinctively, clutching the folder tighter, stumbling slightly on the uneven grass. Sarah gasped, shocked by his sudden violent move. The peaceful park scene was gone, replaced by a raw struggle over the truth itself. Mark's eyes, wild and terrified, met mine. He wasn't pleading anymore. He was fighting for survival, for the chance to keep his web of deception intact. He pulled harder, the folder starting to bend in my grip. My proof, my revenge, my only shield against the gaslighting. I wasn't letting go. Not now. Not after everything. The tension snapped like a live wire. This wasn't just exposure anymore. This was a battle. And the folder, filled with every damning receipt, every stolen moment, every lie written in ink, was the prize. Who would win? The folder tore, with a sickening rip as Mark yanked with desperate strength. Receipts, invoices, printed bank statements, a blizzard of his betrayal, exploded into the air, fluttering down around us like confetti at the world's worst party. I stumbled back, clutching the torn cardboard cover, my heart hammering against my ribs. He lunged again, not for me, but for the papers raining onto the grass, scrambling like a madman to gather the evidence before Sarah could see. Stop it, Mark. Just stop, Sarah screamed, her voice raw with horror. She didn't try to grab the papers, she just watched him, her face a mask of dawning disgust. Look at you. Is this who you really are? A liar and a coward. He froze, handfuls of crumpled paper in his fists, breathing hard. His expensive shirt was askew, sweat plastering his hair to his forehead. The charming facade was completely gone, replaced by pure exposed panic. He looked pathetic, dangerous. You don't understand, he gasped, his eyes wild, flicking between us. It's complicated. I was going to tell you both. I just needed time, ... Double quotes. Time for what? I spat, bending down to snatch a hotel invoice near my feet. The one proving he'd booked a room for Valentine's Day under a fake name. More lies, more stolen money, more her. I thrust the paper towards Sarah, but her eyes were fixed on something else, amidst the scattered proof of his financial infidelity. Half hidden under a crumpled dinner receipt lay a different kind of paper. It had fluttered out unnoticed during the struggle. It wasn't a credit card slip or an invoice. It was smaller, printed, with a grainy black and white image at the top. Sarah's hand, trembling violently, reached down and picked it up before Mark could react. Her breath hitched. A strangled sound escaped her throat. All the color drained from her face, leaving her looking ghostly pale against the vibrant green grass. She stared at the paper, her eyes wide with a new kind of shock, deeper and more personal than the financial betrayal. Mark saw what she held. The blood drained from his face too, leaving him ashen. Sarah, no, please, The raw terror in his voice was different now, deeper, primal. It wasn't just about being caught cheating anymore. What, Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible, cracking on the single word. She held up the paper, her hand shaking so badly, the image blurred. It was an ultrasound printout, clear as day, dated just 2 weeks prior, and printed neatly at the top. Beneath a tiny, grainy silhouette was a name, Sarah, her name, and below that, estimated gestation, 9 weeks. The park air, already thick with tension, turned absolutely suffocating. The receipts detailing his affair were damning. But this was a bomb detonating in the heart of Sarah's world. Her eyes, wide and disbelieving, lifted slowly from the ultrasound image to Mark's horrified face. The question hung unspoken, heavier than any accusation about money or hotels. Is this mine? Is this real, or is this the ultimate lie too? Mark opened his mouth, but no sound came out, his desperate scramble for the financial papers forgotten. He just stared at Sarah, trapped by the horrifying new reality he'd created. My own breath caught, the revenge I'd planned, the exposure I'd craved, suddenly felt small and cold, next to the devastation unfolding on Sarah's face. This wasn't just about my broken trust anymore. This was about a life, a future, potentially built on the same shifting sands of deceit. The stakes had just exploded. Sarah looked from the ultrasound to Mark, then slowly, agonizingly, her gaze shifted to me. The confusion, the fury, the betrayal, it was all still there, but now layered with a terrifying, vulnerable question only Mark could answer, and a dawning realization that his web of lies might be deeper, darker, and more destructive than either of us had ever imagined. The silence stretched, broken only by the frantic pounding of 3 hearts, each waiting for the other shoe to drop in, a nightmare that kept getting worse. The silence was so thick I could hear a bee buzzing 3 feet away. Sarah stared at the ultrasound, then at Mark, her face a battlefield of shock, fury, and a terrifying, fragile hope. Is this real? She whispered, the paper trembling violently in her hand. Mark, tell me this is real. Mark looked like a man facing a firing squad. His mouth worked, but only a choked sob escaped. He sank back onto his heels amidst the scattered receipts, his head dropping into his hands. Sarah, he couldn't even form the lie. It's real, I said quietly, my own voice sounding strange in the sudden stillness. I pointed to a crumpled piece of paper near his knee, a credit card statement showing a payment to the same imaging clinic listed on the ultrasound, dated a week before he paid for it. It wasn't sympathy driving me, it was the brutal truth. She deserved to know exactly what kind of man had fathered her child. Sarah flinched as if struck, the fragile hope in her eyes shattered, replaced by pure, unadulterated horror. You paid for this, she breathed, looking at the ultrasound, then at the evidence of his lavish spending on her while deceiving me, with her money. Our future, this baby's future, Her voice broke completely, dissolving into ragged, heart-wrenching sobs. She crumpled the ultrasound against her chest, doubling over as if physically wounded by the magnitude of his betrayal. Mark finally lifted his head, tears streaming down his face. I'm so sorry to both of you, I messed up, I panicked, His pleas were pathetic, meaningless noise against the wreckage he'd created. Sarah straightened up, wiping her face with fierce, angry swipes, her eyes red-rimmed and blazing, locked onto him. Sorry, you think sorry fixes this? She gestured wildly at the scattered proof of his double life, the hotel stays, the ring receipt, the damning ultrasound now clutched in her fist. You built everything on lies. To her, to me, to this baby. The words seemed to choke her. You stole from her. She pointed at me, her voice trembling but strong. And you lied to me about everything. My whole life with you is a fraud. She looked down at the ring still lying in the grass, then kicked it savagely away, sending it skittering into the rose petals. Take your fake proposal and your fake life and get out of mine. She turned to me, her expression a complex mix of devastation, fury, and a strange, desperate solidarity forged in shared trauma. Keep your evidence, she said, her voice raw. Do whatever you need to do. Get your money back. Ruin him. He deserves it. She spat the words towards Mark, who flinched as if physically hit. Then, without another word, Sarah turned and walked away, her shoulders hunched, the crumpled ultrasound still pressed tightly to her chest, leaving Mark kneeling alone in the ruins of his deception. A strange numbness washed over me. The revenge I'd craved felt hollow, bitter. Watching Sarah walk away, broken by the same man who broke me, extinguished the cold fire of my fury. Mark just knelt there, utterly destroyed, surrounded by the paper trail of his downfall. He looked up at me, his eyes pleading, broken. Please, can we just talk? That's when I saw it. Half buried under a receipt for expensive perfume Sarah wore was another small slip of paper that had fluttered free during the struggle. It wasn't a credit card slip. It was a bank transfer notification from Mark's account to Sarah's account, dated yesterday, for a significant amount, way more than a gift. My blood ran cold. I bent down slowly, ignoring Mark's whimper, and picked it up. My voice was icy, devoid of any remaining emotion. I held up the transfer slip. What's this, Mark? Another gift? Or ... The horrifying possibility slammed into me. Was this payment? Sarah, I called out, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet park. Sarah, almost at the edge of the grass, froze. She didn't turn around, but her shoulders tensed visibly. Mark's eyes widened in fresh, absolute terror. No, it's not what you think, he babbled, scrambling to his feet, reaching uselessly towards me. Sarah slowly turned. The raw pain was still etched on her face, but now, layered over it was something else. A flicker of panic, guilt. She looked from me to the slip in my hand, then back to Mark's frantic face. Her own expression shifted, hardening into something defensive, calculating. It was for the baby, she stated flatly, but her voice lacked conviction. Things I needed. He owed me that much. I pressed, the pieces clicking horribly into place. Before the big romantic proposal in the park, I looked from Sarah's suddenly shuttered expression to Mark's sheer panic. Or was this something else, a payoff, insurance? Did you know he wasn't free, Sarah? The question hung in the air, sharp and poisonous. Was this whole pregnancy, this relationship, just another part of the con? Sarah's face went stony. She didn't answer. She just turned and walked away, faster this time, disappearing around the path without a backward glance, leaving Mark utterly exposed, not just as a cheater and a thief, but potentially as a man who'd been played at his own twisted game. The revenge was complete. He was destroyed, financially, emotionally, publicly, but the final twist, the possibility that Sarah wasn't just a victim but maybe a player, left a chilling, unresolved echo in the summer air. The receipts proved his lies, but the transfer slip ... that whispered a darker, more complicated truth. I looked down at the man who'd shattered my world, now shattered himself, and felt nothing but cold, hollow emptiness. I picked up the torn folder, stuffed the scattered papers and the damning transfer slip back inside, turned, and walked away. His broken sobs faded behind me. The ring, kicked aside, glinted uselessly in the sun. Just like his promises. Just glass. Walking away from that park felt like shedding 1,000 pounds of anger and hurt. The revenge fantasy I'd clung to, it tasted like ash. Seeing Mark utterly broken, knowing Sarah carried a child tangled in his web of lies ... It wasn't satisfying. It was just profoundly sad. My focus shifted instantly from revenge to survival. My survival, the torn folder stuffed with every damning receipt, became my lifeline. I met with a lawyer the very next day. The evidence was overwhelming. The stolen money from our joint accounts, the fraudulent charges, the clear proof of financial infidelity. The legal process was draining, but straightforward. Mark, desperate to avoid even more scandal after the park incident went semi-viral locally, someone had filmed part of it, didn't fight. He signed over everything he'd taken. I got my money back. Every cent he'd spent on hotels, gifts for Sarah, even that cursed ring. It wasn't about winning. It was about reclaiming what was mine, protecting my future from his betrayal. I heard snippets about him afterward. He lost his job, unsurprising given the public meltdown and the hints of financial impropriety that surfaced. His family was furious. His friends vanished. Karma, I guess. As for Sarah, the pregnancy was real. She kept the baby. Last I heard, she'd moved back home across the state, focused solely on her child. The mystery of that large bank transfer, it remained unanswered. Maybe it was for the baby, a last shred of responsibility from Mark. Maybe it was something else. I chose not to dig. Some truths, once uncovered, only bring more pain. Her story was separate from mine now. The real closure wasn't in ruining him or getting my money back. It was in the quiet moments afterwards. Sitting alone in my apartment, finally feeling safe. Deleting every photo of him, block by block, rebuilding my finances, my trust in myself. Therapy helped untangle the gaslighting, the constant doubt he'd planted. I learned the hardest lesson. Real love doesn't require detective work or a folder full of evidence. It doesn't make you question your own sanity. True partnership is built on transparency, respect, and actions that match the words. Mark's lies were his prison. Walking away, rebuilding my life brick by brick with honesty and self-respect. That was my freedom. The receipts proved his deception, but letting go of the anger, that was my real victory. I finally slept through the night. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was peaceful.